Welcome to this new video. Today I'm here with Peter Andreasen from the Sample demo team. Oh, sorry.
The Sample game team?
Sample
Yes,
game team.
that's what we call it. We don't have like an official name. But
Oh, you don't?
most people call us the Sample game team because we make the Sample game.
Okay, the Sample game. And the latest release you did is the FPS Sample.
Yes, that's right.
That was released at Unite Los Angeles. Yes. In 2018.
Yes.
Sorry. So, Peter, thanks for being here. Super excited. I'm super excited about the FPS sample, especially because when you presented this, you had this slide saying like a lot of questions. Like usually when we play games or when we are making games, we usually see other mostly AAA games, and we ask ourselves like, how did they achieve that? Yes. How does that work? And usually, sometimes the answers are on the internet, but most of the times for these specific cases, they are not, right?
Yes.
So today we're going to cover that. And first, I'd like to ask you like, what did you do at Unity? For how long have you been at Unity?
Yes, so I've been at Unity for 2.5 years now, actually.
Okay.
And literally on the day I joined Unity, I had Joachim, our CTO, was welcoming me, and we were talking about what the topics or what tasks I should look at. Yeah. And one of the ideas we had been talking about was that I should maybe try and start up to create a sample project. Everyone liked that idea, and basically I got my task was to assemble a team. Okay. And then build a sample project. So that was pretty amazing because I used to make development with Unity as a normal game developer before I joined Unity, and I always talked to I knew some people at Unity and always was poking fun of them and saying, "Oh, you should make a sample game. It'd be so cool for us to have." So now I got the chance to do it myself.
And what was the reasoning behind Joachim and you wanting to make a sample game?
So I think initially the reason was mainly, I think, to show people how things could be made in Unity and to give people ideas for how to start up their own projects. And then I think as we did the development, as the months went by, we found out that it was also extremely useful to test out new features in Unity. So maybe we changed the focus a little bit to try and both be something that can show people how to start up a project, but also be a place where we can, try out stuff like, for example, the HD render pipeline was just being made when we were developing this. So we switched to that to make sure that we were part of testing it and to make sure that the content, the graphical content we made would, live for a long time because the HD render pipe is the future.
Right. Okay, that sounds exciting. And I usually I tell people like, okay, Unity doesn't make games, right? Our business is in making a game engine so other people can succeed at making games. But still, it's important to use our own software to see what is lacking, to see like what pains users will stumble upon.
And also, I mean, we are making something that definitely looks like a game, but if you think of it in terms of the amount of content, of course, there's not enough to sell. I mean, if you're trying to sell this, you need to do more, right? This is one level with 2 characters and a couple of weapons, so not enough to actually sell. But I definitely think enough to showcase how to do things and to put some healthy pressure on certain areas in Unity, right?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Cool.
So you want to start? Show us where to get the FPS sample, and then go from there.
So I think some may have heard about this, but I just wanted to quickly show how you can find info about the FPS sample and what it is. So we have this landing page at unity.com/fps-sample. Yeah. And here's a lot of description about what it is and introductions, and there's also towards the bottom there's actually some of the videos that is already available about netcode and graphics and so on, some talks we gave. And we have a small trailer here. I'm just going to play that because that gives a little bit of an impression of the type of game. So it's a very traditional, in some way, first-person shooter. It's we all know that game type. It's multiplayer only, so there's no single-player campaign. You always join and play either a state-up deathmatch, or we have what we call assault mode, where you have to capture bases, is the other sort of game mode. And then you have a couple of weapons and some characters, and all the usual stuff you need to have a fun deathmatch.
Yeah.
So, of course, I would say the two biggest, maybe, I don't know, challenges or areas that we focused on was the netcode, because that was a big part of that, and also the HD render part graphics. But the thing that I wanted to actually talk about today is, what if you are not making an FPS game? What if you are not doing that? I actually want to sort of like maybe inspire people to see that there's actually still some value in a sample project for them. Because we made everything in the assets folder, all the scripts and the editor scripts that we use to produce this. This is also part of the project.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of stuff that we can you can extract from there, maybe get some ideas.
Even if they are not making an FPS.
Exactly. I mean, I think if you're making anything that is in the realm of like a 3D game and building worlds with characters and so on, there will definitely be some tools here. Awesome. So I want to show some of these tools and show maybe some ideas for how you could extract it from the project if you would like to use them as they are, or maybe continue to build on them in your own productions.
Okay.
So real quickly, I wanna just show you, apart from this page, there is also a link to our GitHub page from that. It's like GitHub Unity Technologies, FPS Sample. This is where we release the sample game, and it's usually updated maybe once a month or something like that. We try and make a new release with some new stuff in.
Okay.
And there's instructions here in the README file for how to get it, so I'm not going to cover that here. Right now we're using Unity Beta 12, so the latest beta, and we're going to switch to the final release very soon.
Okay.
But I want to highlight, in case any of you have not tried it yet and are going to do it, please remember to use Git large files, because otherwise you will not actually get the assets, you will not get the textures and the materials, you will just get a small file with a hash in, and it won't work. So there's instructions here for how to do it, but it's a common mistake when you, in particular, if you go and use this green button and just download a zip, it will not work because you will not get the large files.
Yeah, and that's usually like succeed just to see the download button and try to download everything. Yes. But most of the time, especially for these large projects, when you want to use them in Unity, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Okay.
So you definitely need to. I mean, most Git tools that you install now, if you just install like Git for Windows, they actually come with large file support installed and so on. So everything's good. But just make sure you clone the project actually.
Okay.
And then you should expect to get something like an asset folder that has something around 18 or 19 gigabytes of data. If it's much more than that, you didn't get enough.
Okay.
So that's a tell. So I already cloned the project here.
Yeah.
And I thought I would go and show some of the different tools that is not FPS specific, but might be useful. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Basically, what you cloned was a Unity project, right?
Yes.
There are assets, but everything is within the Unity project, basically.
Correct.
Okay.
So this is the root of the GitHub repository we see here. There's an asset folder that you know, of course, from Unity projects, and we have a few extra folders. We have a documentation folder that contains stuff like some Markdown documentation that you can read and so on. But other than that, it's a pretty straight up Unity project, as you would know. Okay,
yeah.
And maybe one little thing before I dive into this, just want to highlight all the source code and all the assets has been produced in a way where we can actually offer people to use them freely in their own Unity projects.
Okay.
So you can actually, it's fine if you just take the code or the shaders or the textures or whatever and use in your own project. You are free to do that as long as it's a Unity production.
Even for commercial purposes?
For commercial, it's fine. There's no, I mean, you can of course read the legal text in there, but the gist of it is that you can do anything you would like to do with it, commercial or whatever, as long as it's based on Unity.
Yeah, okay.
That's the one. Awesome, good. So, assuming you have cloned the project from GitHub, and you then have opened the project in Unity, it will take a little time for you the first time you open it. It has to import everything, but once you open it, you will, let's just simulate how it will look. You will probably have something like this, more or less an empty situation. And you will not even have this window. So it will look like this. And the first thing you need to do is you need to locate this FPS sample menu. This is where all the different tools that we have for this project can be found.
Okay.
And I think the overall theme of this little conversation here is basically an invitation to go and investigate here.
Right.
Check out stuff here, because I think there's a lot of stuff. That's fine. I'm going to show you something, not everything. You should go and check it out yourself. But most definitely you need to open what we call the project tools window. It's the most important window for this project for navigating everything and building the asset bundles and so on. So I'm just going to do that here and dog it over here. And we use this to give people a nice little way to quickly open the levels, because we have each level is made up of multiple Unity scenes. I'm going to talk about that a bit. So,
Okay.
So I'm going to use our small scene. We have a small scene that's very simple, and a slightly bigger scene that you saw in the video. I'm just going to use the small scene because it runs nice on this laptop here. So this is a tiny little test level we have where you can, it's good for deathmatch and for a few people that are running around, but it's very simple.
Okay, nice. Okay. So basically, these levels, as you mentioned, are made up out of smaller Unity scenes. So
they are.
There's no single Unity scene with this level in particular.
You can actually see out here that this particular one is made from 2 different Unity scenes.
Right.
And we try to be consistent when we talk about it. We say a level is what the player would know about. I'm going to play this level.
Yeah.
And a Unity scene is the actual file on the disk. And a level could be made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Unity scenes, depending on how you want to do it. Okay, so let's start with some of the. We'll start easy and use some of the small tools we have. If you go to the FPS Sample menu, we have this thing called hotkeys. We have a bunch of little tools that are bound to some keys, and they're improving the quality of life when working with Unity. So maybe the simplest one is just that if you have selected a few objects, sometimes you just want to deselect all. You can hit Alt-D. And I show you this little thing because I just want to explain that even the smallest little, most silly little tool that we found useful, we left in here. We didn't clean out anything. Anything that our artist wanted and we made, we just left in here for people to take a look at.
And this is great because Unity is like a super generalistic engine, right? Like people use it for 2D, 3D apps, games, whatever. So we try to make it accessible for everybody, but some people might think that some workflows in Unity, some like shortcuts, doesn't fit their pipeline.
No.
So the cool thing is they can extend Unity to fit their needs. This is a great way to just see like, okay, this is how they did their custom tools for something like this. And
I think that's the point in general that what I show here is what we ended up doing. I'm not saying this is the way you should do everything. Maybe you just get some ideas. Some of the things we did actually was inspired by some wishes the artist had that I think was maybe influenced by technologies they had worked on before, or maybe the art packages they worked on. Yeah. Maybe you will have different artists that will need something else and you can morph it, right? So, but if you go on and just want to see the source code for, let's going to open this one, and we have, it's conveniently named hotkeys.cs. This is the simplest tool. The other one will have more meat on it, but I just want to show this is how we sort of have made this little tool. And you can of course see here you could easily extract just this little piece of text here. So let's take a look at a little bit of a more maybe not advanced, but maybe a more fun tool. So we have a thing we called a toggle here that is fix scene view FOV. So FOV is field of view. And this tool actually does 2 things, because one of the things that the artist was complaining about was that when they're composing a scene and wanted to make, really dramatic from this view or something, it's actually, the field of view is kind of important. And of course you can go to the game view, right? And I'm gonna maybe put it over here. So we have the game view and do like this, so you can easily recognize it's the game view and the scene view. So maybe you want to make something that looks really nice when you're standing there, but maybe you have a different field of view in your in-game camera. So made the script that if you have a scene cam, like a camera in your scene, and it's the main camera, then actually when you change the field of view it actually also changes the field of view over in the scene view.
Oh.
So now I actually am working here in my scene view, and I have a little bit crazy here, but you can see I have the field of view that is the same as what I'm using in game.
Okay.
That means I can like see how will it look from here, and I can position my things. And this little script actually does another thing, which is that I think people have probably. I'm just gonna make this field of view go back to something sane. Okay. Some people probably tried, just zooming in a lot with the mouse wheel in Unity. Sometimes you can end up where the near and the far plane of the camera starts to clip off content. So you end up like going close to a rock here, and it will sort of like be clipped by the near plane. That doesn't happen here because another thing of this little script is that we actually change the behavior of the mouse wheel. Okay. So it actually does what I think camera people calls a dollying. So it's moving the camera along the forward axis when you roll the mouse wheel, not zooming in as the default is. So again, as you say, Unity is extremely configurable if you know how to do things, and you can change it to whatever behavior you would like. If you want to extract this little tool, you need to go to the what's called Scene Cam File Fixer, very clear name here. So this little file, you can extract that, and I think you can more or less just dump it into your project, and you will get it in your menu somewhere, and you can start using it if you like this tool.
Everything is C#, right?
Everything is C#, yeah. Everything is C#.
Okay.
So that's one nice tool. Other things, now we're still in the warm-up phase, so we do the easy little things here.
Yeah.
Is so I guess you all tried this. I have selected this green box, and now I actually would like it to sit over here, right there where the mouse is. So I can hit Shift Control Q, and it will just snap to there. And maybe I want it to be like positioned weirdly on this. It will respect the normals of this weird rock. Most usually I want to just place it on. So I'm going to undo this because now I messed up the level completely. So now it's back to normal. So that's a very nice tool to just place objects under the mouse, in particular because if you have selected something over here, maybe you found something here that you want to move this box, you can place it there. You don't need to have it in view. You can just select it from a hierarchy and have it placed under the mouse. Again, very little tool, not rocket science, but you can save some time just taking it from here.
Yeah,
and you don't have to do it yourself. And because it's C#, this is in this placement tools.C#. Maybe you don't like exactly the way it works. Maybe you have another convention at in your production. Yeah. Well, then you can change it. It's pretty easy to change. I think it'll be faster to start by this and then change it rather than going all the way from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, more things for the artists here. So one common thing that the artists have been observing is that, so I'm just going to do this in slow motion so everyone can see this. So now I click on the rock, and I have selected the rock. But then I maybe click on the rock again, and now I have selected something that also looks like the rock. So let me move the rock a little bit. Now I have created a disaster. Yeah. It was very easy for me to do this, but I have created a disaster. And in order to see the disaster, let's just go and zoom out a bit. Can you see the rock goes up and down here, right? And that's because accidentally, when I thought I moved the rock, I only moved one of the LODs. You can see this rock has multiple LODs. So that's a pretty bad thing. So if you are going to move a lot of objects around like this, we have a mode. You can go into the hotkeys here, and you can do what we call the LOD selector. You can also press Alt-L. And when you have that turned on, no matter what you select in an object that has LODs, you will always get the master node.
Okay.
So no matter what you select here, you will always get the master node and move that around. If you have a level, as we used outsourcing quite a lot. So our level is made up of a lot of prefabs that was then made nice by the outsourcing people. So if you're now going around your level trying to move walls and floor sections and so on, it is extremely dangerous if you end up clicking twice on something and you move the different lot. You may only discover it much later.
And I've seen that some people, especially like artists, when they're new to Unity,
Yeah.
and they don't have to, right? Like they see one object and they move it around, and they shouldn't be aware of, oh, I'm moving something within a hierarchy.
No.
So this is something that causes some issues, because then you start doing some transforms, and the transforms are all messed up. So this is definitely and not necessarily this tool, but these kind of tools. Like once you are working on a game studio and you start seeing like, okay, my team comes from this background, so they are maybe not Unity experts, so you can make tools to alleviate that, right?
I think, I mean, now that you say that, I think that is an extremely general principle that is super important to try and achieve in your production pipelines. Think of it as like a safe sandbox for each discipline. So if you are a junior level designer, you need to strive to find a way where the junior level designers has all the tools that that person has available. He or she should be able to use them safely without accidentally messing up something. If you can create that safe zone, so to speak, they can creatively work much nicer. If they are always very afraid of hitting a wrong button or something, they will be very cautious and basically not make the nicest game they could.
Yeah.
Okay, so this little tool is found here in the lot selector. And I actually noticed now that we will talk about it here that, well, this can be improved quite a bit, this tool, right? I mean, it's a little bit odd that when I'm here in the hotkeys, I can't see if it's on or off this tool. There should definitely be a way to know that this thing has been, enabled or disabled. It does say it down here in the lock, but it's a little bit rough.
I see.
And I think, in general, that is something we have decided that we're okay with that. We're not trying to make a lot of polished small tools. We are showing exactly what we did. And then I think the invitation basically for everyone is to take it, morph it to your heart's desire, and maybe when you're done with it, it won't look like our tools at all. It will be better, but you had a starting point at least.
Yeah, right.
Okay, the last thing I want to show of these small tools is it's a little bit hard to show on a laptop, but the artists among us will know this a lot. So when you're looking at a game...
When you say it's hard to see on a laptop, it's because of the size of the screen?
It's because the real setup for like an artist would prefer is basically to have two monitors.
Right.
And they would like me to have a monitor. I've seen a lot of my artists do that. They take the game tab here and they make it into a window and they move this in like maximal size to another monitor.
Okay.
So you have basically a high-res version of the game with none of the gizmos or all the other not super pretty things that we have. We have all these gizmos and things that confuses the view here, but we have the ability to navigate, which is very nice. So what we made is that you can, in the hotkeys, all of these has shortcuts, as you can see. That's what they're called hotkeys here, but I'm just going to show it to you so you can see what I'm doing. We have something called toggle game view tracking. And when I have this on, the game view will, in the editor mode, track what I'm doing here in the scene view. So this may be a small window on because I have all the hierarchy and console and so on, but if the game view is maximized on my secondary monitor, I have a very nice view with none of the gizmos. I can see all the things exactly how they will look in game, and I have all the freedom to say, maybe I should move this around a bit, and how should I do that, right?
But
it's a little thing, but I think it actually, in the end, it's the sum of all these quality of life things that, I think it means actually more than maybe, I'm a programmer, right? So I think I've come to the conclusion that these things mean more than I would initially think.
Yeah, and I'm wondering like why this is not like a default thing in Unity, but again.
So I think that is actually, and then I think that is one of the reasons, that's also something I talked to Joe about and other people about. That is why we are doing this also in the middle of R&D. Because sometimes when we do things like this tool, it is almost like a prototype for something that could go into Unity. And we can then show it to the editor people and say, hey, we found this useful. and they will of course then make something that's potentially much nicer and more, polished and different. But just knowing that the feature request came from a desire that at least was strong enough that we went ahead and did our own script is kind of like already a vote of importance.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'm gonna do like this now. Good. So, and just to finish up this thing, this tool is can be found in the Game View Tracker, is what it's called. And in I think you should probably be a programmer, or at least have a programmer nearby if you're trying to extract some of these things, because they might have a dependency here and there that you need to sort of like unwind yourself from. But we are trying to make it so that I'm just gonna see a Game View Tracker here in the assets folder. Yeah, we do have a scripts folder that contains all our normal scripts, and then we have a tools folder that contains stuff that we found that we think is not specific to this project. So we have, for example, the lot selector that we saw before, and a bunch of placement tools and other things that we kind of like. This is an invitation to extract it, basically.
Right. Also, do you think we should assume people messing around with the FPS sample should have already some sort of knowledge in Unity, right? Otherwise, it might be too daunting to just see like, wow, what's going on here?
I mean, in general, yes. But I'm careful to voice this wrongly, because some people have an amazing appetite and they like to learn from taking things apart.
Okay.
I mean, I learned a lot when I entered game dev, just taking, modding games and taking games apart and so on, right? So it's up to a little bit to like your personality, but we have not made this as a tutorial.
Right.
So you should expect that you need to either know something about Unity or definitely be spending some time trying to understand it.
Okay.
But we do have a forum, and we would invite everyone, even though they're not doing a FPS sample, if they're just interested in the project, they can go there and ask questions and so on.
Are you on the forum?
Yeah, we try to answer questions there as well, and there are also some users already who kind of are starting to know the project and can answer questions as well. And so on. Yeah. So that's very cool. Good. Okay, so this kind of concludes the small tools section, and I want to show some. So these are like my hotkeys operational tools that you can do. But just like we had the project tools window here, we also made some other more like some tool windows. And I think a lot of Unity developers know that's one of the powers of Unity. It's very easy to create your own little window. So I'm going to show a few of those.
Okay, awesome.
So the first one is actually something that I believe is on the way into Unity as a real feature at some point. It may even be in the latest, I'm not sure. But at some point we made a selection history.
Okay.
So when you're working in Unity, I think most people who have tried this can relate to this fact. I've been selecting different things from the project down here. So maybe some prefabs, or let's see if I can find some scene, or there's some prefabs here. And so on. And I'm also selecting maybe some things up here in the level. And as you can see in the selection history, this remembers the last things that you have picked.
Okay.
So if I want to get back to the characters folder, I can click on it once and it will just ping it for me down here. I can click on it twice and it will actually select it down here. If I, for some reason, am going to work a lot with the characters, I can pin this selection item by clicking the checkbox, so it will stay there. Otherwise, I think this list is maybe 10 or 20 long, and it will basically new things will push out the old things. Except if you pin them, they will stay there forever. So no matter what I do, the characters will be there.
Okay.
And one of the very nice things is that I do that all the time, that I'm looking at an object here in the inspector, and now I want to maybe assign, I don't know, something for this to this field here, the trigger here. And I knew I was looking at it just a few minutes ago, this object that I wanted to drag in here, but it's gone somehow. So you can actually drag from the history here, and I can drag this, and I can drop it here if I want to that. So I can actually drag things from that I recently have clicked on into any field, and that is extremely powerful. So as I said, and basically as you asked, some of these things should be in Unity, and this is a good example of something that is, if it's not already in 19.1 beta or something, I definitely think it's on the way in some form.
Good to know. Good to know.
But in the meantime, you can just take the script, and this is I think called selection history window. Yeah. So, and this is source code for the window, and you can just take it, and a suggestion would be, so one thing is it doesn't remember from time to time. If you close Unity and open up again, it has forgotten your history. It would be nice if you could remember that. So we can't just improve the quality of life for artists. We also need to think about the poor programmers. And one of the times where the programmers, where it's useful to think of the poor programmers is when, so I guess everyone has tried to do, merges or conflicts with your version control system, right? Now I'm using Git here, so I have a few files changed. I have, we can look at them here. And if you've done that, you also know about GUIDs. Right? GUIDs is Unity's way of keeping an eye on the assets. And sometimes, things will go wrong, and you will have to, your project will somehow be messed up, and you may actually end up having to look into the YAML files, the files of Unity. And we actually made a tool that can help you in those situations. Let's see if I can find it. It's in the hotkeys, lookup asset GUID. So this is mainly for programmers. It basically is a tool that if you have a GUID, you can just paste it in here, and it will show you what is the asset that matches that GUID. So if you are fixing a merge conflict or something, and you see, what is this GUID actually supposed to mean, you can simply just dump it in here, and you can immediately see what is the asset. Okay. Or the other way around, if you know that a reference in the YAML file should be to this prefab here or something, you can actually just drag it into here, and then you can see the GUID. And you can also see, it will also say if you end up having like a GUID that is not like a valid GUID for some reason, it will show that. Cool. I hope it's not something you will use a lot, because it usually is a sign of like a couple of painful hours ahead of the programmer. But if you're in this situation, it can actually be pretty useful to do that. So we call this the lookup asset window, and you can find the source for that in the lookupassetwindow.cs. So again, not rocket science, but I think also annoying to have to sit and write if you don't have to. It's not the most exciting code, so you can just copy this if you want. Okay, let's move on to another and a little bit more advanced tool. So there is something in Unity called material property blocks. I don't think it's a super well-known thing, so I'm just going to quickly pull up the manual page here. Okay. So on all renderers in Unity, there's a method from scripting that's called setPropertyBlock. And as the text says, it lets you set or clear per renderer, or also sometimes per material, parameter overrides. And parameters in this case is basically the things that you normally would type into your material. So it could be, for example, a color or a texture or something like that. And sometimes, in particular, the classical example is like being able to tint objects into different colors. In this level, like we have a bunch of cubes. We have a green one, a red one, and blue one over there. And you could, of course, do that by creating new materials, a green material and a red material and so on. But the difference between these two cubes is only in the color parameter. Okay. Texture is the same, all the other things are the same. So we made a script to make it somewhat easier to do that, because it's actually more performant to draw things if you know that there's only a few parameters that are changed, by using this set property block.
Okay. Okay.
But it's a little bit, doing it from script can be a little bit, you can't ask an artist to do that, right? So we made this tool. And what we have here is that it's this script I have here, material property override, and it actually points to a property override asset. And if I click on that, I can see I have a bunch of assets. It's a scriptable object that contains some override parameters. And if I double click on it here, now I see this asset. And this asset says it works only on materials that has the shader HD render pipeline layered lit. And on those materials that has that shader, it will override these two colors. So the base color and the base color. I'm just going to click this show all because this is showing all the potential parameters you could override. And you can hit plus and you will then be able to override more of them. So we can maybe say, let's see, maybe we can override metallic as well. Do that and then close this. This. Okay, so let me start by changing the base color override and say, okay, let's change the tint of it. Now you can see that the tint of this box is changing, and it's changing not because I'm changing a material, because all the other boxes have the same material on, so they would also change color then. It's just an override for this particular object.
Okay.
And I can also maybe make it metallic, because now I made like a metallic slider here, so we can make this very weird looking now. You can see it's kind of like metallic in some, I don't know what it is now, it's pretty weird. It's not an artist who made this now, we can see. Yeah. And since I made this in a scriptable object here, I can use this scriptable object on other boxes as well. So maybe the red one up here, if I click on this, it also has a material property override script on it, and I can just drag in the one I made here and say I would like to use that here as well, and now I'm using it here. And I think this metallic stuff looks weird, so I'm going to open it and then tone it down. And now, of course, it works for both of them because they are using the same override block. And in some way, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's almost like this is sorry. It's almost like this is a material instance system. So I have like a material base material, and then I can create some instances that override parameters on it. Yeah.
And as you said, like this is something that an artist should be changing, right? But if you tell them, to make these changes, to make these overrides, you have to create a script and mess around with those shader properties, or it's kind of like counterintuitive.
Yes, it's probably too difficult for most artists, or maybe then it would only be one artist who could do that, who knows a bit of scripting, and what about the other artists and so on. Yeah. So that's why we made this tool. And there is actually, if I just look at this one, so there's you can actually also rather than do this override by pointing to a scriptable object like this, I'm just going to clear this. So now I see the object as it is by the material. I can also do like just for this game object override. So I can say show all, and I can just on this one expose a base color. So this is like a one-off thing. I'm just going to tint this in this particular way. And I have just done it for this object. I can't reuse it across other places. So those are the two ways you can use this tool. And there are a few more details to this, but this is the gist of it. And if you think this is interesting, this is somewhat more complicated. I mean, I think it's across 5 or 6 source files. Yeah. But I still think that it will be easier for you to take this and extract it, and maybe fix up the few dependencies there might be, and use it in your own project, rather than writing it from scratch. Or maybe you have another idea for how the pipeline should look like, but you just want to see some example code that is using this API set property block. Yeah. Sometimes, at least I personally find it easier to understand an API by looking at sample code than by looking at the manual, because you need to. It can be difficult sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Also, if you have sample code or those kind of things, you can already test it. Yeah. even when I think Unity's documentation is great, sometimes there are some missing parts, right? So if you have already an implementation there that you can play around with, it's easier to learn than.
It is most when you have. So if you have just a single API entry, say I'm going to instantiate an object, that's fine. You just go look it up in the manual, and there's probably an example down there saying how you should do it. Yeah. The problem is if you have like an API that is like a whole range of functions that has to be used in a good way together. Yeah. That can be difficult to read out of the manual, and then it's easier to maybe have an example. And if you want to take a look at this particular example, this is our repository. In the assets folder, you can go to this tools folder. And here we have the material property override folder. And in here you have a bunch of different scripts. That is basically what you just saw over here. So that's what is doing this thing we're doing here. Okay. This will be requiring maybe a little bit more effort because I think also if you extract a piece of code from another project, you are then taking over the responsibility of doing it, right? So ideally you extract it and you take a look at it so you roughly understand how it works. So when there's maybe a problem or a feature request, you take it over and the code become your code, right? Yeah. Okay. So this was a tool that the artist was quite happy with, and they're using it a lot of places in the levels.